Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's the June 17th, 21 Environmental Conservation Board meeting. We have an agenda with 2 items on it today. And we'll start with item number 1. This is Riviera, Selena and David, 775 and 777 South Lake Boulevard. You want to please come up, state your name.
Selena Rivera.
Good evening. All right, so why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown of the items that you had submitted since our last time.
Okay. So, I'm really short.
Pardon? Oh.
No, I said I'm really short. So I submitted the patio renovation, phase 1 and phase 2 of it. We also submitted what we did to the dock, which was completed before I was scheduled to come here. So they just put exactly what was done, the sequence. You also have a survey, and then what they'll be using for the survey, what they'll be using on the dock, like material-wise.
Okay. So just to be clear, the top-level documents here we have this one, which says patio renovation with phase 1 and 2, and then there's a second document called construction sequence. Together, I assume that these make up your sequence of construction and the site, like everything that you're going to be doing.
So the dock itself was already done, right? Before I had to come here. That was done right weeks ago.
Okay.
But when I came here, you guys requested a list on what we did to just the dock itself. So we just wrote in sequence what was done to the dock. So that project was already done. We just put it on paper what they did in that project.
Got it. So I do have a couple of questions on the dock part of it, but before we do that, just to be sure here, so what you submitted in terms of the scope of work was then, as I mentioned, both of these, one was for the deck, and one is for the dock, patio renovation, and one for the dock, and then also a revised site plan. That's this one with the blue line delineation, correct?
No, we did I want to say we did a revised one. I'm not sure. Can I just look at that one?
Yes, come on up.
Use this. Mr. Go to speak.
Right, so this is the new survey. The one that you have, not the one that I have.
Okay. Thank you. And papers. Okay. All right, so I have a couple of notes that I'd like to just go through. Number 1, let me go through the items that we had requested from last time, and then I'll also go through some of my notes from what you have submitted. Number 1 was we asked for a scope of work, all work, and that included the dock, as you just mentioned. You have that. The seating area, which is, I believe, listed in the patio renovation side of this. I'll have to check that for a second. Including the silt fence on the actual site plan. Which I'm not sure I see a location for the silt fence on there. We asked for a floating boom and also, a floating boom. I'll have to ask the board, did we ask for a floating boom for the work that needed to be done with the patio still, or that was if they were going to be continuing to do any dock renovations? I think it was if they were doing more dock renovations, right?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Okay. Silt fence on drawing, pavers, if whatever kind of pavers you're going to be using, which I saw you put in there, they would be pervious, and then also rain garden, the rain garden area, as well as calculation and size. We need to know for the dock and the deck and the patio area, what was old that was being removed and what is new that is being put in. We need to understand the size of the impervious area, so the square footage of any new pervious area that was going to be going in, including the deck that had already been put in, what you were doing with the disposal of debris, any machinery, and then any subsequent tack-ons for that, such as if you're using heavy machinery, spill kit, no fueling on site, etc. And then what you were using for the base type of the flagstone. So going through all of that, there was a number of items that I'd like to have clarified. Number one is I did not notice anywhere on here about fueling, a fueling plan. So you did mention that you are going to be using an excavator, right? Mini excavator?
Well, he's not sure yet whether he needs one or not.
Okay. Regardless, I mean, you had, I think I saw that it was in the plan here, so you want to use it, you don't want to use it, it's fine. It's, if you have it in there, it's even better.
He did put it in here, though, what he's gonna.
Right, so I saw that there was you will have a spill kit on site. We'll also need a note added to the file, and you could do this afterwards, it's fine, like if we accept the file as complete here, we will need a note that says no fueling on site. So if you're gonna fuel it, you know, with a gas can or whatever it is, you gotta take it further away, across the street, out of the buffer zone. You can fuel it there and bring it back, but no fueling on site.
Oh, okay, so I don't need to bring anything for that, I just have to.
You have to add a note to the file, so you have to
Okay.
send an email or C Rose or something along those lines.
Okay.
Another item with regards to the Bobcat is excavator, mini excavator. No overnight parking unless it's on 5 mil poly. So you can keep it on the site, but if you're going to keep it on the site overnight, you need to park it on plastic sheeting. Home Depot sells them.
He wrote
Many of
that.
the stores have it. What was that?
He wrote that in the plan that he'll put, I can't read that fast.
I didn't see it in here when I went through it. It may be in here, but it wouldn't hurt to just add it onto tack
Okay.
it onto the email they put on there. So no fueling on site. I'm sorry, no overnight parking unless it's parked on 5 mil poly.
I'm sorry, 5.
5 mil,
Okay,
5 mil poly, ML,
okay.
yeah. That's the thickness of the plastic.
Got it.
And you, like I said, you can buy that at any home improvement store. Washout location. So I know that you're putting in, that you indicated that there's going to be a washout for the concrete bin made of plywood, plastic lining. That's excellent. You need to put that on the map. That needs to be shown on the map somewhere of where you're going to be storing this, you know, where it's going to be staying.
Can you just repeat that one more time?
Sure. So with the patio wall rebuild, there's a concrete footing that's being put in for the seating wall. And with that comes the washout. There's a washout bin that is indicated in your sequence of construction here.
So you want to see in the drawing, the
That,
washout bin?
that needs to, where are you keeping that on site? I mean, I don't suspect that it's going to be, it may be, but probably not going to be small enough for you to be moving around very frequently. So if you're keeping that on site somewhere, you just need to put X, right, and then a dash or a little box wherever you're going to be putting it on site. Concrete footing. So one of the items that I was having a little bit of a trouble understanding, and it could just be that I'm mixing up from last time, is regards to the seating wall and the concrete footing. Can you please point out on the site plan where that is going again?
The seating wall?
Yeah,
So,
you can come up here.
okay, sorry.
No, it's all right. I know back and forth and back and forth. It's all right. Appreciate that.
So the seating wall would be located right where, so right here. I don't know what. So like, let's say this is the street,
Yes.
the seating wall would be right over here.
Okay, so it's not shown currently on the map, is it?
No.
Okay,
I'm just gonna look at the other one.
Sure.
Unless this is what he meant by the seating wall. I doubt it.
like that, the blue line right there, you think?
So,
Could be.
I think, yeah, because here,
So is it here?
I think
Right,
this is what
this
he
blue
meant.
line?
I think that's what he meant by the seating wall. Do you want this one?
Let me take a look.
I
Where is
think-
it?
I think that's what he meant by the seating
Okay,
wall.
so on the map that we have here, what is indicated as the seating, yeah, that looks right. That's, okay, it's on there then.
Do you want this one or?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
So if that's the case, that is where, is that the only place you're gonna be using concrete on the site? So just to pour that wall there?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty far away from the, I don't have any concerns about that. Okay. Other notes. Sequence, boom, wetlands inspector, did I see that? Install silt fence. Another item that you will have to add to, so those two notes that I had said already that you'll have to add to the file, you'll have to add another one. It may just be beneficial to add it to this that you've submitted, edit this and resubmit this specific document. You'll have to add a note about our wetlands inspector going out, visiting the site after you've installed silt fence, and then before you remove the silt fence at the end of the project.
Well, the silt fence is there already.
Excellent. So you have to, when you get the permit, you give him a call. You can call him as soon as we say, yes, you have the permit, and say, can you come inspect the silt fence? He may not even say I have to go out there if he's seen it already, since there was a notice of violation, he may have been out already. Rich just has to, the wetlands inspector has to say, yep, your silt fence is installed correctly and we're happy with it, commence work.
So I'm sorry.
Yes.
You know what, we'll recap after, because I just want to make sure I have the right things that I have to put in the patio renovation.
Not a problem, not a problem. Okay, and then, dock section, post replace. I guess before we go on to talking about the dock that was already done, does anybody on the board have any other items they want to bring up regarding the patio renovation?
The location of the rain garden?
Yeah, the rain garden.
Rain garden.
Is that adjacent to the seating wall?
So the question that we wanted to ask is, if you have a permeable pavement, do you have to have a rain guard, even though you have something that says permeable? Like, so someone told us that you don't have to have a rain guard, allegedly, so I just wanted to verify that with you guys.
And those are the Unilock pavers?
Right, they're
In the file?
permeable pavers. And we also provided you with a sheet of what kind of pavers we were using.
So it decreases the amount of rain garden you need. We'll say it that way. Permeable pavers, we love to see. So it's excellent that you've chosen that as it's a green solution. It's really awesome. You do have installed already new decking. So you still have a net increase, to my understanding, of permeable surface from previously. So by using the permeable pavers, it's a wash. You don't have to include any additional mitigation, stormwater mitigation or runoff mitigation, infiltration mitigation. You have to for those. But for any of the deck area that you've already installed, and I believe from the pictures, oh yeah, here we go, pictures, and from what you've told us already, like there's that new, there's a newer section, please correct me if I'm wrong here. Oh, this is a good picture. Looking at this picture, right? This deck here was this, did you have any additional permeable surface on there? Like, was this just replaced in kind?
That was just replaced, and then,
And then next to it, what was that? Down here, I see there was a bunch of stuff potentially moved. Yeah, come on up.
so that was also pre-treated wood.
Yep,
So we just
remove that.
removed it, and then we're gonna put the permeable pavers
Up
here
to
as
there?
well, yes.
Okay. What are you gonna be doing with the concrete beam that goes across? Are you going up to that beam?
Yeah.
The berm or whatever it is? Okay, and you're not gonna be touching that at all, not chipping it out or anything?
No,
Okay,
that's too much. This beam supports the.
It's a bulkhead.
right, bulkhead, there we go, that's the word I was
That
looking
is
for.
bulkhead.
So from the, so just to be very, like, explicit, are you indicating that, taking the pavers aside, the pervious pavers aside, there's been no increase of impervious surface from the work that you've already done?
No.
Okay. Does any of the board have any questions on that part? It seems correct. I think that's probably correct.
If anything, they're increasing permeable surface.
What was that?
If anything, they're increasing the permeable.
Imperviable. I mean, yeah, permeable. Yeah. Okay, that's great. So then the answer is yes. If you're not, if you don't have any increase in impervious surface, and in fact it looks like there may be a decrease in pervious surface, then you do not need a rain garden.
Okay.
At least that's what that's my
Right,
opinion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. All right. So I had a question. Then, any other questions on the patio side of it from the board? Okay. On the dock side of it, I notice in here that you had. I don't remember this from our previous conversation 2 meetings ago as well, or 4 weeks ago, whatever it was. It looks like piles were put in. At least I thought I read that. Reinforced joists, existing dock existing dock section posts are replaced and leveled with 1.5 inch galvanized piles. So what I want to confirm is, what's that? This is what, sill
It's
fence?
good, yeah. It's good. This is where it should be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so the piles are for the dock, though. So I'm asking a question now about the dock that was put in. Can you indicate, maybe you know, it's not very clear either on the map or the pictures, where the piles were driven in? Looks like on the
Just educate
corners.
me on when
Yeah.
you say file.
Sure. So they are they're posts that go into the bed of the lake in order to keep your dock from, well, in case of floating docks, from floating away. But they can also be load bearing, right?
It has to be.
Right. Well, you can also just have a post in there that's
That's what.
for floating docks.
Well,
But I don't think, I mean, none of these are, well, there is a floating dock. There's one floating dock, right? There's one floating
There's
dock?
one.
So this is a floating, this is cantilever, it looks like a cantilever
I don't think.
with the bulkhead back there.
I don't see any. What's supporting the dock?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The fingers that go out, what's supporting it? Pile, post?
No, the floating dock?
No,
This.
all the docks, I mean, really,
This,
but,
the finger.
Like
What's
the
holding
far
this
end
up?
of the finger.
That's the floating, what you're putting your finger on is the floating dock.
All right, so you got black floats underneath
Yeah.
it? Okay, so you probably drove some posts in so it doesn't shift. Is that correct? Or is it just attached here?
It's attached.
All right, so that, in other words, just a floating dock.
but so they, I mean, on
Then they're
here it
talking about,
says,
are you gonna use any posts in there to stabilize it? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know, but I'm not.
where did she say was floating?
That little.
This. But this
The little
one,
square.
The other fingers.
No,
This finger.
so,
the black floats.
so that's a floating dock. yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What about, and the
What
far,
about the
all,
other
the whole
ones?
thing is, the far part, the
This
the
one
closer
is
part?
not a floating, it's,
I see.
it's,
Pu- Yeah,
but it always had those.
the
what do you call
posts.
it?
Piles.
Posts.
The gal, yeah.
Yes, it always had that. What happened was, it was uneven, so I think he just leveled it.
Did he remove the ones that were in there and
I
then
see
put
what
new
the-
ones?
Yeah, see, this had to be brought up to the
Think
side.
so?
Oh, so they had to bring it, I see,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, okay, that's all right. Listen, at some point, you might find out that you have to stabilize it, of course, with all the wakes and stuff, it starts to move, so you might have to drive something in the lake bed, not a big deal, just to stabilize it. I don't think that's something we have to worry about.
Pile holder, all bracket pile holders installed with galvanized couch bolts, yeah, existing dock section posts are replaced and leveled.
It says it's replaced and leveled.
Right. Do you know if they used, I mean, it's done at this point, but do you know if they used concrete in the lake?
No.
No.
Okay. Just asking. That was all my comments. That's all I had.
Okay, so just to recap really quick. When I'm going to email you, what I have to email you is for the patio renovation, and I just have to add a note, no fueling on site.
I'll go through the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes that I've told you and one that I just thought of.
If you fuel on site, you're going to need a spill kit.
Right,
There is one.
All right, so you can fuel on site if you have to.
What we could say on the poly if you need to. On the poly.
Oh, yeah, sure.
On the poly, if
If
you're gonna
do it.
fuel on
And
site.
you're gonna
I'd be
store
okay,
it
I'm
there
okay with that.
overnight, then you
If
have
a
to-
sill fence, you've got the poly, you have a spill kit, you have the poly, that should be fine. Let me collect my items here. Okey doke. So the items that I have, just to make sure I got this all, let me cross this off. You need to add to this document, would be the most prudent for you, this one here, the patio renovation,
okay.
the following items. A note indicating that if fueling is to be done on site, it must be done on the poly sheet, or no fueling on site. You can include either one of those two notes.
You're using the machine to lower material, building material, am I correct?
I'm sorry.
So you're using the machine to lift the materials down to the
Right.
work site? Okay. And that's all, you're not digging with it?
No.
Okay.
Next item is overnight storage of of any heavy machinery must be done on poly.
I guess this is the notes then.
You need to include a note that the wetlands inspector must inspect the silt fence prior to start of construction. So you install the silt fence, you give the town a call, he comes out and checks it. You don't need to write all this down, but. And then you also need to call him again at the end of construction, but before you've removed the silt fence. You need to show the location of the washout on your site plan, so that plan with the blue, this blue that you've submitted, you can, I think I'd be okay, so you don't have to submit another one. If you just indicate on the sequence of construction where on the site that is going to be put, I'd be okay with that. Is the rest of the board all right with that? This way she doesn't have to submit another one of these?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Indicate where on site plan,
Where this on the site that the concrete washout structure or container is going to be located. Preferably far away from the lake. As far away from the lake is reasonable. Understanding that you should be relatively close to wherever you're actually needing the concrete.
okay?
And then the last item, I didn't see it in the file. I gave you a copy last time of the silt fence detail that needs to be included. I don't think that I saw it submitted though. So you'll have to just include that as well in your email, and ask that to be included in the file. You can just do a quick look up on Google and say silt fence detail. You take that that little sheet,
And then staple
And-
it to the.
and you can send that along as well. That's just so when Rich goes out, or our wetlands inspector goes out, or whoever you have building this, contractors you're using, knows that there are specifications for how to install silt fence and which ones we're looking for. It's very common, but it's just to make sure that it's in the file and known. So that was it, those 5 items. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so none of this, I think, precludes us from accepting the application with the condition that you submit this. So what we can do is, I will ask for a motion with these conditions, and you have to submit this information that we've asked for by Tuesday, because was it Monday or Tuesday when it goes out? Monday. So if you submit it by Monday, what happens is we can advertise. All of our notices for the town go out on Tuesdays to the newspapers, and then that starts the clock. And then you'll be on the clock for any comments from the public. If there's no comments, you get your application if nothing has changed in the 2 meetings.
And so how long do I have to wait for that?
2 meetings, so that's 1 month.
Will I get a notification of when I come back?
I again suggest, as I do to everybody, that you call Rose in 2 weeks or so and just ensure that you're on the agenda. But generally speaking, it will be 2 weeks from when it's submitted and it gets put on our agenda.
It should be July 15th.
That'll be, yeah, thank you. You could say it, Phil. I don't know if you're.
Yeah, it should be July 15th.
So if everything goes according to plan, July 15th, then July 16th, per se, we can start construction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And in between that, does the inspector have to come out to see the silk fence that we have right now? I'm assuming he did.
So because it's
already
already
in place.
Yeah, because it's already in place, what I would recommend is after we go have our vote right now for accepting the application, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, whenever you call Rose even, with the information that we've requested here, give Rich a call as well. The wetland inspector is also the town engineer. And just let him know, like, hey, I'm pretty sure you visited our site. We have the silt fence up. Whenever you get a chance, can you come check it out? What he'll do is he comes check it. He goes in and looks at it, makes sure it's okay, and just shoots us an email saying, looks good.
Okay.
In which case, then, that's a condition of, you fulfilled the first condition that we've asked for on here. All right, so with that, I'd like to entertain a motion for accepting the application for, where is it? Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah, I can just use the agenda, that's right. Accepting the application for 775 and 777 South Lake Boulevard, tax map 75.42-1-28 and 29, with the following conditions. A addendum to the patio renovation work sequence include the following conditions: no fueling on site, or notes about the following conditions: no fueling on site, or if you do fuel on site, that you fuel on the poly, the 5 mil poly. That if you were going to overnight park any heavy machinery, that it be parked on 5 mil poly. That the wetlands inspector be notified on the installation of erosion control measures and prior to the removal of those erosion control measures. The location of the washout for the concrete washout, as well as inclusion of a silt fence detail document into the file. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So we're accepting your application. Please get those 5 items or 2 items, I guess, into Rose on Monday. And we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank you.
You too. I don't think I need to sign anything yet. That's fine. Pretty sure it's just the application whenever that goes through. All right, let's start on with the second one here. Pass this down, and pass this one down. I don't know if you'll need to open it up, but in case you do,
In case.
here it all is. So, next item on the agenda is G&F subdivision, Gateway and the Fairways, 2054 Route 6 Carmel, a bunch of tax maps, 55.2-24.5. 6-1, 7-2, and 8-2. And this is disturbance associated with grading and stormwater management and associated activities. Please, as we have our setup already, come on up and state your name and who you're here to represent.
Dawn McKenzie from Insight Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture, here representing the applicant tonight for the project. Just setting up my boards.
Take your time.
Okay.
See. So whenever you're ready, you can go ahead, tell us a little bit about the project and what you're looking for tonight.
Okay, so the GNF subdivision was approved as a 7-lot subdivision back in early 2000s, and part of the work, it created actually the Gateway and the Fairway Lot 6 and Lot 7, and both of those projects have amended site plan approval from the Town of Carmel Planning Board. And when this was originally approved, there was wetland permits for these 3 projects, for the improvements associated with these projects, and they have since expired. The GNF subdivision road actually started construction shortly after it was approved. There was interest in, the GNF subdivision established some commercial lots along Route 6. Are you familiar where it is? I'm sorry, I didn't even give you a location. Okay.
It's where is it? Right across
Yeah,
the street,
it's-
right near Flying Arrow Sports over there, right?
Correct. It's on the north side of Route 6, and it's east of the intersection of 6N and Route 6, which is where Flying Arrow Sports is. Correct. And right, and you can see there's actually a constructed driveway entrance there. So shortly after approval, the owner, there was, interest in the commercial properties for the project, which were towards the Route 6 end. So what they did was they installed, under the permits at that time, the New York State DOT entrance improvements and any of the improvements associated with Route 6. They did installation of water and sewer mains in that area, and did some of the stormwater management associated with that, and also installed the entrance to the site, which you can see when you drive by, and some other improvements tied into that further into the site. And so, can I step up? Would it be helpful to point to the map
Sure.
where we're talking about? All right, do I need to bring the microphone?
We can give you this microphone right here.
Okay. So, thank you. All right. So, where I'm talking about is this area right here at the entrance. So this is US Route 6, Flying Arrow Sports, 6N are in this location over here, and there is an existing entrance to the site in this location. So I'll just give you a general overview of where the wetlands are on the site and where we're at, and then we'll flip the page and we'll look a little bit closer at some of the improvements that need to be re-permitted for the project. So, just generally speaking, so this is the subdivision road, and that will, when it's fully constructed, will end up being a town road leading into the subdivision. There's commercial lots at the front of the site, and then further in, there's residential development projects, which is this one up here on lot 6A and 6B, that is the Gateway Summit project, which has its own internal road system. And then further on, there's the Fairways, which is a residential development. And then down at the bottom of the site, there's Crystal Lake, and there is a DEC regulated wetland, and then there's this, which is the blue line that's highlighted along here, and then this portion actually is town regulated wetland that was flagged differently from what DEC had delineated. So since this was originally done, let's just talk about the wetlands first. We had a DEC wetland permit for improvements as part of this project within the DEC wetland buffer, and I think I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let's just talk more about this. So as part of the project, what we're proposing within the wetland buffer is there is some disturbance associated with the installation of the town road in this area within the town regulated and the town watercourse regulated buffer. There is no disturbance associated within the wetland or within the watercourse, just so that you're aware. And the orange line represents the wetland buffer. So in addition to that, there's recreation improvements and a trail proposed within the wetland buffer that provides amenities for residents of this development down at the bottom by the lake and by the wetland. So, and that's what's represented by the green trail. So you see the green line going through there, right? So, and it can be accessed from on the site in this area. I didn't highlight the entire trail. I tried to focus on what's going on within the wetland buffer. But there is trail access, you know, from more than one location, and it allows residents to get down to that area, and it actually connects back out here as well, so it can be accessed from these sites. Anyway, and associated with that, there's actually down here, the trail goes closer to the lake, and there's a little sitting area. It's a gravel sitting area. It'll have a pergola over the top, so it's, you know, open air, just with a little bit of shade associated with it. Further down, outside of the wetland buffer, there is a boathouse proposed, and a loop trail goes down, and there's actually a fishing dock and a place where people can tie in non-motorized, like a kayak or a canoe or something like that, and actually get out on the lake. So, and these are all permitted by DEC. And I think I mentioned that the boathouse, they can store their boat in the boathouse and come down here and get out on the lake. So now, and that the boathouse is outside the wetland buffer. So I think maybe we'll jump in now that you have a general overview and open this up a little bit. So, as I said, most of the improvements out at the entrance have already been improved. There's actually a stormwater basin that's been installed, and that's off of the sheet. So, but there is some disturbance beyond that associated with some fill for the road that's in the town-regulated watercourse buffer. That's this area highlighted in yellow here. And then a little bit further down, this is another stormwater basin that's associated with construction of the town road. And so that also will need to be conducted within, within the town-regulated wetland buffer. And then there's trail improvements. Actually, this is an existing portion of the trail. So the way the trail system works is it's actually meant to be, it's located down in this area because having walked down there, it's actually the flatter part of the site. If you look at the topo further up between the developed area and this lower area down by the lake and the wetland, it's pretty steep. So what they do is they are going to create a reasonable way for people to get down there, and then once you're down there, it's the lower, flatter area, and that's why it's within the wetland buffer, because that's the flatter area just before you get to the wetland, and they're going to try to get the trail in as much as possible without doing any disturbance, but we've made an assumption of how much disturbance, you know, at the most would be associated with this. And this is generally where the trail is going to go. They'll work around the trees because they don't want to take trees out, and they want to minimize disturbance. So, and they'll utilize portions of the trail in locations where it doesn't need to be relocated, and there'll be no disturbance with that. So the trail is intended to be just, if you look at the details on the detail sheet, they may just borrow a little and fill a little and just regrade, do some minor regrading in some areas to create a safe trail for people to pass on. No impervious associated with that and minimal disturbance. And so, and like I said, reusing portions of the trail where they can, and maybe, you know, they're going to put up blazes as trail markers, and that'll really be more the way that the trail will be defined. So,
do you have an estimate of how much regrading needs to be done? How much material has to be regraded? Is that?
so I do have an estimate of how much disturbance is associated with each part of this. So let's go back. Not all of this is shown on this plan, but I could certainly open up the gateway plans and show you. So this is just a focused trail set that we use to do permitting with DEC, because most of the trail for, the trail improvements were within the DEC wetland. This is just a separate, and all it does is summarize what we've detailed on the approved site plans. It's the same information, just focused on the trail. So that's why I'm showing you these, but I can flip open any of the other site plans. It shows exactly the same information, just with the larger developed area that's outside the wetland buffer for the housing developments. So, but anyway, actually, I think I might just flip this one up. This is the gateway. This is the gateway site plan, and what doesn't show on that other map. We'll start with this area here. So over in this area, there's actually drainage connection over here to a stormwater management basin in this little piece. And this is another piece of, there's a little piece of town regulated wetland over here as well, that they'll be doing some disturbance within that. So there's actually the county landfill up here, right? And there have been some improvements and regrading associated with that that were not part of this project that actually disturbed portions of this wetland. And so we have updated flagging for this that was just done recently within the last couple of weeks, and we just don't have that mapped yet. So this will probably be different than what I'm going to tell you. But based on the approved plan, the originally approved plan, there would be, in this location, 0.2 acres of disturbance within the wetland buffer associated with installing the approved stormwater management for the Gateway project. And then, we'll flip back, just because that was off-site and you couldn't see it. Then, still to be accomplished for installation of the subdivision road, this yellow area here, which actually goes a little bit off the page, but it is shown fully on the subdivision road plans. And this yellow area here, that's all disturbance within the wetland buffer that's associated with the subdivision road. So that's another 1.04 acres of disturbance associated with installation of the town road. And then, excuse me, so right here, this is the lot line for lot 6, which flips on to the next page. So this portion of the trail improvements within the wetland buffer and on lot 6 is another 0.4 acres. And then this is the rest of lot 6. And then the rest of this disturbance within the wetland buffer, that portion of the trail where the sitting area with the pergola is, and we haven't actually looked at this portion close up yet, but this is where the boat dock is. That's where the boathouse is outside the wetland. This portion of disturbance represents another 1.47 acres. For overall disturbance that I've just shown you is 3.11 acres of disturbance within the wetland buffer. One of the things I'd like to point out is that the woodland trail that it's called, and there's a detail on the plan for the woodland trail, it is going to be installed with a minimal amount of grading and disturbance, as we talked about, and it's going to be a minimum of 5 foot, a maximum of 6 feet wide, and that will be determined based on where it is and how it works, what they'll do to minimize the grading. And then this portion of the trail, starting from the boathouse, looping around here, there's a turnaround, and heading back up to where it comes off the cul-de-sac for the fairways, will actually be a gravel trail, and it'll be probably around 8 foot wide. I think it says on the plan that it's a minimum of 8 foot wide. And that gravel area was actually provided at the request of the Town of Carmel Emergency Services to make sure that they could get a vehicle down here in the case of an emergency. So that's why that was actually improved with gravel and and wider than the rest of the trails.
So you've come before us before for an extension, correct? Or is this the first time you're coming before us with this?
So the trail improvements, actually, I don't believe they have been permitted by the ECB. They
Gotcha.
have amended site plan approval from the planning
Right.
board, but they
Okay.
haven't been to you yet. But any of the disturbances, other disturbance associated with the stormwater management areas for Gateway and for the subdivision road already had wetland permits, but they had since expired. So we're looking for, I guess, extensions of those, and we need permitting for the trail improvements.
I didn't see, that's like I haven't seen the other permits in the file here. I didn't see the other actual permits to be extended.
They would have been from when the project was initially approved,
Oh,
probably
early
back in
2000s?
2007.
Okay, so they will all need to be
They would be
re-permitted.
Right,
Okay.
right, right, they're being re-permitted.
Gotcha.
It is not, none of these are an extension, it's a re-permitting.
Beautiful.
Right, and that is of something that was already previously approved, no changes to the plan
Mm-hmm.
from what was previously approved. What's new is the trail improvements.
So mainly, the regrading is just for a trail.
Correct.
And the road
For
at the front.
no construction of anything other than a trail.
And the road at the front.
Well, for the
There's no
stormwater.
structures, I mean, you're not grading to put in any structures, correct?
So, within the wetland buffer, no, actually, we're not. So they're
Yeah,
gonna
right.
pad out a little gravel area, to put the pergola up, but that's it.
Okay.
Right, right, and anything, and according to the DEC permit, if you read their conditions, and any of the meeting notes from when we were before the planning board, we absolutely could not put the boathouse in the wetland buffer, that's why it is out, and all construction associated with that needs to be from outside of the wetland buffer side. So,
You are putting in a dock too as well, right?
yes, we are, and that's permitted by DEC, yes. And what they'll do with that, actually, if you read the notes
Right.
associated with the detail, they're gonna walk their way out and install the pilings from the top down. They'll put some pilings in, put some more pilings in, build some decking, and walk their way out from the top of the decking to put the dock in.
That also does require a permit from us.
Okay.
With this.
So
Yeah, right, and that's why we're here.
Okay.
Right, that's all part of this.
So let me go back. Can you go back to the sheet that has the road grading? That hasn't been done yet, has it? Right there, yeah.
The portion that we're here for permitting has not been done yet. Right. There's other grading within the buffer that has been done. It's already been completed. And actually, I can flip the plan up to show you that, because I brought everything with me. I think it's on the other side of this, so just bear with me a sec. And I can show you what's already been done
Okay.
compared to
As
what
part
we're
of
asking you to do.
as part of a previous wetland permit.
Correct, as part of the original approval.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So this is the subdivision road plans. So there's a stormwater basin here that's actually already been installed. So let's just find let me flip up to the grading plan for that. And all of these plans were submitted, of course, as part of your
There's a
packet.
structure right in the beginning of that too, right? There in the.
There is a building over there right
Yeah.
now, but that's going to come out when they move forward, but
That's not within any buffer zone?
it's not. So here, let me see. I did not highlight the buffer on this plan, but I should be able to outline it for you. So it starts here.
Yeah.
Actually, I brought a highlighter, if
Where-
that'll make it easier, right? And this is the part that's shown on the plan we were just looking at, and this is the part, this basin's already been installed.
Got it. Oh, yeah, so I see that structure is just outside the buffer area, is that correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
existing. Yeah.
Right. I'm
Right.
just saying when you take it down, but you do not need to come to us if it's outside the buffer at this point.
It's outside the buffer, right.
And so can you point to where you will now be grading, the newer grading? Is it on this map as well, like where it would be, just roughly?
Yeah, this is the proposed grading plan for
Gotcha.
the subdivision road, right?
Uh-huh.
And this stormwater basin right here, you can see it,
Yep.
has already been installed. So what they're going to do is, that's been installed, so they're going to start, I believe they're going to, let me go back to the highlighted plan, which is of course on the back of this. Poor planning on my part, but it's generally this portion here, right? And then let's follow the buffer. It is this portion here, which are in the wetland buffer. And we can flip back to the other plan to see that, if you want. Want me to go back?
Sure. Is there any, so associated with the, you can flip, associated with the grading, are there, how much removal of trees or, I guess trees would be my main concern, is going to be taking place there? It doesn't look like there's that much within the, that's going to actually be within the buffer. I mean, that yellow highlight did seem to go pretty far towards the stream.
Yeah, this just extends a little bit further out here, but generally that other stormwater I have a diagram, hold on.
So I have concern about the erosion off of that new grading into the stream.
Okay.
That's one of my concerns.
So we have a full stormwater pollution prevention plan for this. There'll be silt fence installed prior to construction, and it'll be inspected regularly based on the requirements of our general permit coverage from DEC. So I don't see that that should be an issue. It shouldn't be. That's why we have a SWIP, to prevent downslope erosion. So, yeah, I think that, I'll just step up, if you don't mind. This isn't the entire project, but it shows you, so see where we have highlighted in yellow here? This is that stormwater basin that's already been installed, right here, right? And that portion of it was in the wetland buffer. This is the piece in yellow that's left, this is actually road fill, it's not even for stormwater management. This actually is a portion of the berm for this stormwater basin, which is also required for the subdivision road, for the town road, so. And that represents the, what did I say, just over an acre of disturbance, I believe is what 1.04 acres is associated with that. That's what that area is. And you can see, actually, this plan shows the limit of disturbance line. That's what the dotted line is. It shows that silt fence is going to be installed. There's stone check dams in any of the swales they're grading in. And these were all approved as part of our SWIP and the original subdivision approval. So, and all of those are still valid, so. We just need wetland permitting.
This is the stream?
Trail.
Those are the trail?
On this one, so yeah, this is just a diagram we were doing internally, but it shows a little bit more context at one point. That's actually the water course.
Right, water course.
Right there.
That's a stream.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then it continues here with, this is the wetland line. Those are the flags for the wetland, the town regulated wetland, so. And we did have them reflagged, by the way, within like the last month.
What's the status of the SWIP?
It's current
And
and approved. Yes. Yep. Yeah, all of our other permits are valid for this project and up to date. So, you know, we had DEC out, they re-verified the wetland, and the wetland, because this had been around for so long, their wetland permit, DEC wetland permits have a 10-year time, they expire after 10 years. You can't renew them anymore. And so we actually had to submit a new application and get it approved. So all of those trail permits beyond where the delineation is different for the town wetland than it is from the DEC wetland, all of the rest of them, they walked it again and reviewed our entire application again and our plans again for these trail improvements and re-permitted it. So, but of course that's them, that's not you, but that's why we're here, we're talking to you, just to let you know where we're at with all of this.
Can you describe the walking trail a little bit more? What is it going to be, the ground going to be? Is it just going to be flattened earth? Are you going to be putting gravel down?
So the most of the walking trail will be flattened earth. That's it. And then the portion of it that's wider, that's for emergency access, is going to be gravel.
That is, can you point again
Yes,
to where that's
of course I
located?
can. Mhm. So most of this is going to be flattened earth, or you know, they'll have leaf litter, debris, whatever. If you walk out there, there's a lot of
Mulch type
natural,
stuff?
there's a
Okay.
lot of natural debris there. And there is a detail in the plan, I'll show you that in a second. But that's where all of this is, through here, is all that flattened earth. And then the only portion, if I could flip the page. So I should have highlighted it a different color, and I can bring this up closer so that you can see it. But starting here, there's actually a turnaround for emergency vehicles, and they need to be able to get up here to the boat dock. And this portion here is gravel. Here, I'll come up. Sometimes it's easier. Boards are great, but things are easier to see close up. So, okay.
Yeah, where it's thicker, we can see it.
Yeah,
so-
you can see how it's, I should have colored it differently, but
Perfectly
this is the gravel improved area so that they can get emergency vehicles in there. We had originally designed it less and at their request.
Made it larger.
When we went through amended site plan approval. And we have details for all of that on the plan. So trail details are actually on this plan here. So let's see. We have, hold on, I'm upside down. All right. So these are the woodland trail improvements. You can see they're just going to borrow a little bit and fill a little bit just to level it out, you know, and it'll be 5 foot to 6 foot max width. See, they'll borrow a little and fill a little, and really that's the idea of it, just to make a, you know, in areas where it's not already flat. And then this detail here is for the gravel trail, which is going to be wider. It says 8 foot minimum, but I think we're showing it on the plan at either 8 or 10 foot. But anyway, and it's crushed stone, and it's meant to be for emergency access, and that's the purpose of that.
So the two things I'm thinking about this. One is I'm a little more concerned about the stream over time, specifically the stream bank, and I'd love to talk with if the board has any ideas on stream bank protection. I know we've talked about that in the past, putting trees, trees that have good rootstock around streams, making swales on certain sides of it. And the other part I had a concern, especially with the grading that's taking place, is on the trails themselves without having a not a berm. I guess swale would be a swale on the actual side of the where the grading is, to allow any runoff that's coming down that hill to actually not go over flow over the actual compacted earth, or in this case gravel as well, and then directly down into the stream and into the water course. Into the wetlands. And those are the two things that are on my mind right now. I'm not sure if anybody else has any other
No,
concerns.
that's a good point.
So basically what he said was provide plantings,
Yes.
right? And then maybe have some sort of diversion swale.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Those were the two things.
Okay.
And I don't want to speak for everyone. If anybody else has,
Oh, you've got,
So, in this area here, there's actually already a diversion swale. See this? That's what this is. This is a diversion swale to direct runoff to the stormwater basin. So there's already one designed as part of the project. Okay? And in this location over here, actually this stormwater basin's already installed, but, you know, there's a berm there, and then there's a diversion swale, right? So that's this right here.
there. Well, yeah.
Okay, and then as far as this one goes, let's see. So one thing I want to point out, so here we have they're going to construct a berm for the stormwater management area. One thing about this site, if you walk out there, there's actually a lot of stone walls here. And this wall actually provides a certain amount of protection to the downslope areas. So that's something else to keep in mind. So if you
Can
think,
you
so if you
trace
think about
that stone wall?
Absolutely. Let me get my highlighter. See if I have a different color.
It's funny. I think recently there was discussion about protecting stone walls in the county.
All right, so
Better them up than
we're
them
gonna
down.
have to, I didn't bring many colors tonight, so you're just gonna have to bear with me, right?
That's all right.
So this is the diversion swale,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's already leading into the existing stormwater basin, right? So that's number one, and they'll install that as part of this work, okay? And then the other thing is the stone wall. So there is an existing stone wall here, an existing stone wall here. And they're both intended to remain. They're both intended to remain. And this one, they're actually reconstructing portions of it as part of the project.
That's great.
Yep. So basically what you've got, right, is protection in those areas there. And if you look at the grading in this area here, they're actually grading in a natural diversion swale here as well. So the way the contours work, there's actually a little, see how the topo goes in this direction? It's almost acts like a berm that diverts water towards this direction as well. So see how it figures out this way, what the topo's doing? If you look at it. If you want, I can bring it over so you can see it close up.
We're good.
Okay, but you understand, there's like a little ridge that runs along here, and we're just enhancing it with the grading.
Okay. So the second point that that I was bringing up before was about on the trails itself. On the, I keep saying berm, but it's not berm, it's swale, it is swale. Providing some sort of a swale on the actual trail itself. And I know that in the previously when we've looked at walking trails, one of the things that we've talked about is potentially a diversion swale on the side of the actual grade, like whatever the steepest grade was. So when things do run down the hill, it's not bringing sediment silt right across the trails themselves.
So you're talking about putting a diversion swale on the high side of the trail?
Yes.
Okay, so let's just take a look at the trail detail for that.
Would that also help eliminate the need to regrade the trail?
Yeah, I mean,
As well. Running
I've
the
heard
through
that,
there, yeah.
sure.
Just taking a look here and see what we've got going on. So, just looking at this to see. Okay. So something else I want to point out, you know, how I said there's a lot of walls in here. So in this portion here, the trail actually runs above the wall, right? So even though there may be some runoff, and there's actually a trail coming up here too, which has a diversion swale above it. This is upslope, right? So there's already a diversion swale designed as part of the project above this upper portion of the swale. So essentially what it's going to do is it's going to cut off any runoff to this portion of the trail and divert it around here. So same thing for this one, it's going to divert it into the stabilized location. If you go out to the site, there's actually some severely eroded existing drainage channels out there that we are stabilizing and improving as part of the project. So this diversion swale actually catches all that, you know, a lot of the, and there's another one here, these all catch upslope runoff for this entire part of the trail. So,
Great.
so I don't know that you necessarily need it for this section. And if you look at this, existing walls doing the same thing, right? For this portion of the trail. So you have good ideas. Nature and the site is actually helping along those lines, and other improvements we've already proposed for the project are taking care of that as well. So if you see, that wall continues over here. And these walls are intended to remain.
Do you have notes in the plans indicating that?
We can add notes to the plans indicating that if there aren't, so.
I'd be happy
So
to
write that
consider
down
those as
and
part of
I'll
the.
put it on my list.
Sure, I'd be happy to consider that as part of the erosion control that we're asking for.
So, with all of those if those are staying in place, and we strategically place the trail to try and utilize the flattest areas, and some of the flattest areas are above the walls, right? So in this area, you actually have the walls providing downslope protection. So,
Okay, so far
Right.
you've covered from this map to the
Yep.
previous map
Let's
that you
keep-
had,
yep,
almost
let's
all the
keep
way,
going.
a little past the boat dock, the boat outcropping,
yeah, this right here is
Yeah.
actually the pergola sitting area.
Got it, okay, so
Right,
from the
just so we're
pergola area
oriented.
onwards,
More
let's talk
wall.
about that. Great.
Right, all along here, and then the wall comes down in this location, and runs along the edge of the wetland. So,
I would love to have an understanding of the condition of the walls that are being, I mean, if we're gonna consider them as part of our erosion control system, it'd be good to know that they are still existing and that they weren't just on some map that somebody saw.
moving over here so it's not standing in the way.
So I think any part of the,
So you
any
give you
part
some
of the.
photos, right?
Sure, that'd be great, but
Yeah.
somebody should walk it, and,
Maybe
And
that
make
would
sure
be
it's-
something the wetland inspector would look at when he's out there, or do you folks walk the?
I'd be happy to take a little jaunt out there. But it should, if you're going to be, my point is, if you're gonna use, like, if the board will accept that the wall is part of the erosion control plan that we are proposing, or that's being proposed here, the wall needs to exist. And so as long as that someone has verified from the builder, whoever's presenting the application, that they are there, I'd be happy to have them on the map, and that's fine. I also don't mind taking a walk out there myself, but it should be also somebody who's from the applicant.
And
So
also
I have
our
walked this
engineer.
area many
What was it?
times, and
Our
those walls are
wetland
there.
inspector, the engineer should take it.
True, he can as well, sure.
Yeah.
We can request that.
Yep, and
Okay.
I have walked the location of the trail,
Excellent.
Yeah.
so, and those walls are there.
Definitely, that's great to hear for
Yes.
the wall part. I did see
Yep.
some that were pretty far up from the trail itself on the other map. Okay, so from the pergola onwards, we saw that one go almost all the way entirely across there.
Yep.
I don't think that it's necessary to have not a berm, that's in my head.
Swale.
A
Swale.
swale.
I don't think it's necessary to have a swale wherever there's a stone wall that's serving a very similar purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, so my other thing I brought up was plantings. Specifically, not necessarily for the, where you have the wetlands, but anywhere there's a water course. So there's quite an extensive part of the water course there. And as part of, so this wouldn't be necessarily for erosion control, although it certainly helps a little bit. This is more for a little bit of mitigation on the disturbance area.
Okay.
So one of my proposals, you had mentioned that there's 3.11, I believe, area of disturbance within the wetland buffer. So one of the ways that the board here has in the past accepted some mitigation or remediation of any disturbance areas by saying if you put some more plantings in, especially ones that are beneficial to stream banks along the streams, that would be great.
Planting's beneficial to stream banks along the stream.
Yeah, there's an entire, I think even the New York State Best Management Practices has some pretty
You
good
mean like trees for
information.
trebs?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
so, I mean, that's all I have. I'll review my notes again. Does anybody else have anything? Oh, actually, I had one other thing, I'm sorry. Wetlands markers. Do we want to ask for wetlands markers, Town of Carmel wetland markers in any specific areas? We have walking trails going in here, there's gonna be people using it. We've asked for it in some circumstances before, again, as part of the mitigation.
What type of
I think-
vegetation is currently there?
That's where he's going, Skylar.
What type of vegetation is currently there in the wetlands?
So,
I think it's,
Weeds.
yeah, it's kind of shrubby, there's,
it's not
shrubby
like
trees.
invasive Phragmites or anything, right?
Not that I recall.
Common reed or anything?
Yeah,
Okay.
last few times I've been out there, it's been off
don't know about
season,
that.
but it's pretty vegetated.
Sides, I don't know about that.
Only thing I was thinking was, or one of the things I was thinking was the rock walls. using the rock walls as an opportunity to put signs in there, but we don't necessarily have to. And like I said, in certain
I don't know if
circumstances.
there's
we gotta
a
something happen.
sensitive area where there would be a lot of traffic.
Hmm.
I doubt it. So,
What about down by the pergola?
Let's just take a look.
don't jump in the lake.
No, we can. It's an
a wetland
advertisement that this is a
area.
protected wetland area. If someone's going to sit there, it'll be interesting reading material. No, but in all
Oh, you
seriousness.
mean like some sort of interpretive signage?
So we have, the town of Carmel has wetland marker signs that we sometimes request on sensitive areas to be put up. I think it's every 50 feet, 100 feet, something along those lines.
50.
Town, I think that they have them
That's
in
a
the
lot of
engineering.
flags.
It would be, which is why I'm not suggesting putting it along the whole
Okay.
thing. But if there was any specific
If
areas,
there's a sensitive area that, for whatever reason, people might decide they wanted to access beyond, I don't know if there is anything like that, so I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm
No.
not convinced we need all those signs.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to point out, you can see that the water line for the lake is generally, pretty far out over here. And it's pretty vegetated. I can't really see people venturing out into it. It was pretty clear where the edge was when we were out there last time. So that's, why it was very easy for DEC to,
can you show where the dock is
verify it.
again?
Yeah, the dock's on the next page. You talked about the pergola?
Yeah,
the
so
sitting area,
pergola,
so that's why I
it's
brought
one
this up.
consideration area if we
Yep.
were gonna put any.
Yeah, because this is where the
Those
wetland line
giant.
is in here. Yep,
Mhm.
okay. So here, there's a stone wall along the edge, and the wetland line is just inside the stone wall, in that portion right here. I'm not going to highlight it in blue, because that would just confuse things.
Blue on blue. That blue, so the blue wetland, that blue is the delineation of the actual wetland flagging.
Correct, that is the.
And then
that's
there's a
the
stone
limits
wall
of the-
right on the inside of that, correct?
Yes.
What is that like? Can you, I don't
You want me to
have
bring it
the-
over?
No, just the distance from, let's say, the turnaround to the actual boathouse.
Here to the boathouse?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is 100 feet. Does that help?
Yes.
Right, yeah, on 75.
So basically the two areas that I could propose to the board of putting some signs in are the two areas that jut out pretty far into the wetland area or the buffer itself, which would be this area here, potentially right along the stone wall. So, put 3 signs or 4 signs along that stretch of space, and then another 2 or 3 along where the pergola juts out into the wetlands.
Is that the boat dock?
It's a proposal. If the applicant would be amenable to it, or the board has any other suggestions.
When you say boathouse,
It's
what
just,
is it?
it is just a structure for storage of kayaks.
Oh, I
There's a-
see.
There's a
Okay.
detail on the plan, that's all it is. It's got
Got
a,
it,
it's got
okay.
a roof, 4 walls, and they'll store kayaks in it, and that's all it is.
Is it open?
It's not, I believe it's secure. Let's look at the detail. I think it's closed, actually.
Enclosed, all right.
Yeah, and it is
It's secure.
it's outside the buffer.
Oh, yeah. So-
Yeah,
So I shouldn't ask you.
yeah. So actually, there's a detail on the plan, so you can see, right? There
Oh,
it
yeah,
is.
it is
It's gonna have
closed.
siding, it's got
like
a
a shed.
gable.
It's
Yeah,
a shed,
it's
okay.
basically a shed,
You
yeah.
said boathouse. I was
Well,
thinking, wow, it's a
boathouse is, marketing.
Okay.
But that's what it is, it's for boat storage.
It's the kayak. and
Yep,
stuff,
people can put their kayak
canoes,
in there,
whatever. Okay.
yes.
So one last question from me. Plans for getting started on this? What's the time frame that you're looking at?
So, the applicant is actively marketing, right? And he feels that the housing climate, the market is moving forward, and so we're hoping that it's going to be pretty soon.
Okay.
That's why we're back
Got it.
updating the permits. So,
Okay.
always hopeful, but yeah, it seems like it might be moving forward pretty soon. So.
Anyone have anything else?
No.
Everything? Trees being removed within the buffer?
So, we don't have map trees. There's a lot of trees. And basically, the intention is to work the trail in around the trees as much as practical. And because they don't want to remove trees, trees are a benefit. And I've walked through there, and there's plenty of space to get a trail through without taking out any trees. They will need to take some trees out where the dock is going in, at the beginning of that, and probably where the boathouse is going to go, but that's outside the wetland buffer. But we don't expect it to be very many. And we can flag them and have the wetland inspector review them before they're taken down. And also, as part of the DEC wetland permit, there is a timing restriction on removing any trees, but yeah, the trees are an asset. They don't want to take any of them down. They're going to take down as few as possible as part of this.
Would you consider marking the trees that you want to take down?
Before the permit is issued or before construction? It would be easier before construction when,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're right.
Because the surveyors
Yeah,
will be out there
You're
staking
right.
things out,
That
and
tree that's lying
we'll know
down.
where everything is, you know what I mean? Well, actually, trees lying on the ground, unless they're blocking where the trail's
Of
gonna go, are
course,
kind
yeah.
of, they're cool, you know? They provide wildlife benefit, so.
Do you know how the trees will be taken out? Any larger trees or with a machine?
So, I believe there's a condition in the DEC permit that we're not supposed to bring any large machinery within the DEC buffer. So, I believe that's what the condition is. I'd have to check. They've got quite a few on their permit, and they're actually pretty good. So, but I don't know the answer to that. Like I said, there's not a lot of trees supposed to come out as part of this. I don't, and I'd have to go back and check the notes from the meeting when this was originally approved by the planning board, but they were very cautious about, you know, what they wanted us to be doing in the buffer, and I know DEC was cautious about that as well. So we're trying to minimize the amount of equipment. You can see the trail improvements themselves are like very minimal, so they'll probably use small equipment, you know, like a skid steer or something along the lines of that to do that kind of thing. So I would imagine they're probably not going to bring anything big in if there's not a lot of trees coming down. So, but I can ask the question of the applicant, but that's what I think.
Sure.
Yeah,
You know, we're
yeah,
keeping it
use the skid
minimal.
steer.
So,
So there's a few things that may be buried in the conditions already with the DEC, but things like you must have a spill kit if you're down by the within the wetland buffer with any sort of heavy machinery. Must
you were
have a
going to
spill
say
kit.
that, I already wrote it down.
Excellent. If you plan on parking anything down there, you know, you start creating the trail with the skid steer and you leave it down there, it needs to be parked on poly. That's what we probably
Okay, they
heard me
can
say
park it
before.
outside the wetland buffer too. I believe
Perfectly
that's
fine.
what DEC requests that they do.
Same thing with fueling, if it needs to be fueled outside the buffer.
Yep. There's also best management practices for any kind of construction associated with the SWIP. So, I don't know if you're familiar
And that would
with
include the skid
those.
Yes.
steer as well? Or
What's that?
that would include the skid steer as well, dragging the trees out of there?
Parking it outside the wetland buffer?
Oh,
that
no,
can-
so dragging the trees out, or?
That's a good question. I don't know if they're gonna haul, it depends on what they're taking down and how many there are. You know, you wouldn't bring a logging company in for a few,
Yeah.
you know, for like
No.
a dozen or 2 dozen trees. And it may be that they just drop them and get them out of the way. But really, if you're putting a trail in, you can't just take a tree down, you gotta take the stump out if it's in the way. So they're gonna work around the trees as much as possible, but, we can certainly, so you wanna get a better understanding of the size of the equipment.
I mean, you can use whatever size equipment you'd
Yeah.
like, you just have to take more precautions the bigger they are.
You know, and I don't want to oversimplify this, because when they're doing grading associated with the stormwater management basins and they're putting in the riprap swales, they're going to need to bring in bigger equipment to do that. The trail improvements themselves, though, aside from the gravel road.
Right.
Or I don't want to call it the gravel trail, right? The gravel trail for emergency, that they're going to have to bring a truck in to haul in stone, or it's going to take them forever. They'll probably bring in a small bulldozer or something to grade that area off. You know, that part of it is going to be a little bit more heavy duty. The foot trail itself, though, the woodland trail, is a lot less impactful. So I don't want to, you know, over minimize what they're going to need to do to get that in, so.
Okay. There's a few things that we need submitted into the file here, and a couple of questions answered.
Okay.
Before we can, I think, accept the application. So I'll just go through a couple of them real quick.
Yep, let me stand over here and I'll give you this back.
No problem. All right, so regarding any heavy machinery that is going to be used at all inside any buffer zone, you need to indicate that fueling will be done outside all buffer, parking will be done overnight, parking will be done outside of any buffer, and that there will be a spill kit present whenever there's a heavy machinery brought into the buffer zone or wetland. That's number one. Number two is a note or some sort of indication about stone walls, existing stone walls being left as part of our stormwater runoff mitigation from the Carmel ECB.
Can we say to remain? If they want to add to them, then they won't be as is, just,
Fair,
okay.
that's fine. Also, some sort of indication about the status or the condition that the walls are in that are going to be used as part of this mitigation that we're asking for. A stream bank plantings schedule or some sort of a plan for that to help mitigate the amount of disturbance that we're doing within the buffer for this project.
Can we identify an area where you're looking for that to be done on the plan so that I have something more specific than,
Sure,
okay, but when we're done, so keep going.
no problem.
All right.
Wetland markers around both the pergola and the docks. So town of Carmel ECB wetland markers. You indicated that there was an updated flagging for the Gateway project.
Yes.
So we'd want that included with the file.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had, when we started talking about trees and removal of trees, I don't know if we actually finished discussing that, but one of the things that I would like to propose is that if you do end up needing to remove trees for either the grading or the trail, that we find a way to replant in kind. So if you're removing trees for the trail, you can remove 10 of them, 15 of them, we find other places that we can plant. So it doesn't have to be in kind, in number, we'll call it, in
Okay.
number.
I was gonna ask you
Not
about
in kind,
that.
no, we're not
In
gonna
kind
put,
is
not gonna put
like, don't
40-foot
bother.
trees in,
Say,
sorry.
we're not gonna be able to do that.
Plant in number, and
You-
as long as it's the varieties and species that grow, are native to the area.
Okay, so maybe what we do is we put together a list of species, and then.
Fine, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
Put a list of species that you can choose from, and, as you go through them. I'm fine with that. It's more about to me, it's more about the number and that we keep a variety there. Any other comments from the board? Questions?
At this
All
time,
right.
no.
What was that?
This time, no. For
Okay.
me, at least.
All right, that was all I had as well. So if you can get those into us, we can talk next week. 2 weeks from now, and put it on the clock.
okay, we'll see what we can do, right?
Or whenever
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
available. You don't have to do it in
No,
2
no.
weeks. If
Yeah.
they want, I know this has been going on since the early 2000s, so I don't think 2 weeks will make a huge difference. But if the client is anxious to move very
Yep.
quickly, then that's on.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So I think that concludes.
One question, will Rose
yes.
have a list of those? I wrote down very quickly all of the things that we talked about.
Yeah,
but
so
she'll-
I'll be
she'll have your
putting-
list as well, or?
I'll be adding. I'll be sending an email with the updates. Generally, I do that this evening, but the minutes from this meeting should be available within the next 2 weeks as well,
Okay.
written out. The video recording of this is probably live within the hour on YouTube, so you should be able to catch all that. Sounds good. Yeah, and you've had to go through a whole bunch of agencies, it looks like. All right, I think that concludes this evening. Does anybody else have anything they want to bring up? All right, we have no minutes this evening, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, good evening. Thank you very much, everyone.